Welcome to the show. My name is James Nielsen Watt, and in this show, we interview interesting, inspiring, and successful people so you can learn the secrets to success and can play the game of life, business, health, and happiness better. And the philosophy we take here is if I'm leveling up my game, you get to level up yours as well. So get ready to listen to some inspiring people who have figured out how to have success in all areas of life: health, happiness, wealth, business. We're going to be interviewing them in this show so that you can learn the secrets to success that they share with practical advice that you can take and use today. So if you enjoy the show, please subscribe, please leave us a review, and please share it with your friends, because if I can help you and you can help others, then we can help more people together and we can all level up our game together. My guest today is Manuj Aggarwal, a recognized entrepreneur, founder, CEO of Tetranoodle Technologies, and a successful inventor of 4 patents in AI and machine learning. He's developed more than 500 million in value, provided more than 50 startups and enterprise solutions during his career, and scaled systems globally to millions of users. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
I'd love it if you can give our audience a bit of a background on you, where you've been throughout your life to get to this place now.
Yeah. Well, so I am today considered one of the leading experts in the field of artificial intelligence. I have 4 patents in AI, and I have written 2 books on technology. So I've been in the technology space for about 25 years. I worked with hundreds of startups and a lot of large corporations. Basically, they wanted to innovate within a large corporation like Microsoft, ING Bank, IBM, Pearson Education. So my sort of expertise is understanding what the business wants, building technology around it. Some of the projects that we have delivered, they actually got praise from President Obama and Bill Gates. And besides providing technology solutions, so we also provide business consulting, how to grow business organically, how to take business internationally. And this is all done through, various technologies and processes we have developed over the years, and technology has a lot to do with it. And then finally, I'm also the community leader of Startup Vancouver, which is a community of about 2,500 startups and entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And obviously this wasn't something that well, maybe it was, I'd love to know, something that you thought of doing, at 20, saying, this is what I'm going to do. What got you to getting into the world of AI, machine learning and tech?
No. I had a very humble beginning. When I was in India growing up, I was basically working in a factory for $2 a day. I had no clue at 20 where life was taking me. As generally is the case for most 20 years old. But I found a lot of satisfaction in writing programs and creating random things on computers. So I knew that I wanted to, do something with computers. And this was back in, late 90s when the internet, at least in India, was a brand new thing. So it was still like just catching on. And so I was able to ride that initial wave. And then later on, around 2010 or so, these latest technologies, AI started becoming more popular, machine learning. Even though AI has been around since 1960s, because of cloud computing, because of, a lot of computing power being available, AI became a lot more accessible to a lot more companies. So I started getting heavily involved in that, blockchain projects. So most of the work in AI has been done after 2010. Before that, it was a lot of other sort of different technologies, programming, building apps, websites, those kind of things.
Yeah. And so it was a process for you of what I enjoyed, and then just being a part of it, and then, obviously finding opportunities to create value. I think that that's in essence what makes all of us successful, is how we can create value for others.
Exactly.
What's something that you're maybe working on now, or something that you have worked on in the past that really sort of lit you up with the future possibilities to come from it?
Yeah, I mean, very interesting question because, whenever I pick a project to work on, I look at what is the human impact of that project. So, I've done a lot of work in healthcare, for example, built a lot of systems for patients. One of the biggest systems that I built was for the province of British Columbia in Canada. So British Columbia is one of the provinces in Canada, and we have about like 3 to 5 million population. So we had to build a system to digitize healthcare for the entire population. And that was exciting. Then I built systems for students. So, there were Pearson Education is a very large educational technology company. They were actually publishers originally, but now they are getting heavily into educational technology. So they have millions and millions of students across the world who they teach, starting from kindergarten all the way to higher education. So I was responsible for building that large system. So, through these experiences, I realized how big an impact technology can have and how it is changing lives, and this was a few years ago, and already things have changed so much, especially after the pandemic. And so the way that I'm looking at it is next 5 to 10 years are going to be even more drastic change, where a lot of things that we take for granted, or how we live, work, or play are going to change because of automation, because of AI, because of a lot of these technologies that are maturing, that are being adopted at a rapid pace. And that's what excites me, to see how these technologies really impact human life.
Technology progression scares a lot of people. And I think that purely comes from an ignorance or naivety to the level of impact that technology has already had on somebody's life, and to not be aware of what this stuff means and therefore what it can achieve for us. I was listening to an interesting conversation. I forget who was doing it, but they talked about, can everybody be rich, right? Everybody wants to make more money, and it's not for the money, it's for what the money will get us. And the thought experiment being that the reason that we work is to put food on our table and to create experiences for ourselves and things like that. The more wealth you have, the more you can impact other people. And it tends to be the case, right? The most wealthy are thinking about that sort of thing. And so the argument being, can everybody be rich? And this is, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Basically, the point of it was, well, if we have technology that replaces the need for us to do the work to serve ourselves, then what can we focus on? We can focus on all the things that we enjoy as people, and creating experiences for other people, connecting with other people, learning things in a pleasurable kind of relaxed way, rather than I've got to do my job to make money. How do you see AI being a big part of that? And what's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think you are on the right track here. You see what happened. Let's talk about first part of the question, which is, can everybody be rich? No, I don't think so, because this world pays based on the input you provide. Meaning, whatever value we create, we'll get paid for that. And let's face it, not a lot of people actually want to create any value. I mean, they just content not doing anything. And this is not a knock on anybody. This is just what human nature is, right? So people are disproportionately producing value in the world, and that'll continue to happen, whether AI exists or not. Now, the next part is how AI will impact. Yes, absolutely true. Ever since fire was invented, we have been utilizing technology for making our lives easier. The wheel came, the printing press came, the steam engine came, and all these things basically speed up consumption and production, right? And that has created a very easy life for us. Now we can walk to a superstore, get food, versus even 100 years ago, like nobody had a clue how to get consistent level of quality of food in their home and whatnot. So when AI comes along, our cognitive powers will be free to do whatever we want, because right now, as you said, like we are using it all day long to push papers, write diagnosis, what have you. But once we are free to do whatever we want, we will be focused more on more pleasant human experiences, who can provide unique experiences, who can provide empathetic listening capabilities. These are the things that will become more important. And whoever finds new business models out of this desire for humans to always feel good and enjoy the life will succeed, and they will produce more value, they will be richer. And people who will not change their ways, they'll have to suffer the consequences.
I guess, I agree about the disproportionate value creation and therefore wealth creation that comes from that, right? Like people, you look at Elon Musk and how much his net worth is, and people get upset by that, thinking he's taken it, right? And it's this weird belief that, well, if I don't have much and you have lots, it must be because you took what I have, and we know logically that that's not true. Like, I guess you might not have taken from me, but somebody has, because I'm worth something, and why don't I have all of this? And I think that a lot of that comes from we overestimate the amount of value that we think that we are worth and are creating, and unwilling to accept that maybe we're not. And so if the reason that Elon has his wealth is because he's taken us to Mars, he's built he's revolutionized the electric car industry, and so he should have that, because if you gave the 200 billion to Dave down the road, as we know with lotteries, most people lose it within, what's the stat? Something like within 2 years, they lose it. And it's because it's not just about, do I have money, but how do I use that money? And that's why it accumulates for some and not for others. But I think that my point more was that most of us are working towards a place where we don't have to, sell our time and our effort to make the money to buy the things that give us the experience. And that we sort of saw that, I think, in and around the pandemic, in that when we're having lockdowns and people aren't working, and the government was printing and giving us money, not to our benefit long term, but in the short term, we felt like, well, I can work from home, I can be near my kids, I can watch lots of Netflix. And I think that what technology will enable us to do is not have to sell our souls to just pay for our lifestyle, but then there will be those of us who create greater experiences and produce more wealth, currency, whatever that turns to be, to then be able to buy bigger ones. Because what I've realized myself is that once you get above the point of basic quality of life, which is super relative depending on where you are, and we talked about this, for example, in India, let's say, then it becomes, for me, when I was collecting more money, right, and trying to do new things, it was to lift myself and others up, not to take from other people. It was, how can I create more for me so I can go and do bigger and better things? I don't just want to fly, down, a few hours down New Zealand. I want to go to Europe. I don't just want to go to Europe. I want to go there in luxury. And they become these levels that, if you're hungry enough to pursue it, you can achieve. And I think that technology will, and it already has, right? The amount of poverty, maybe people don't want to, look at this, is actually reduced dramatically. And the wealth distribution is, we're all richer than we've ever been, in the grand scheme of things. And technology has brought a lot of us out of that. And so I think that when you're not aware of what technology is and how computers work and what's going on, we can see them as taking away jobs instead of making all of our lives easier. The funny thing for me with this is supermarkets, when you can go and swipe your own food and buy things at the supermarket, and you'll hear people of a certain age talking about how it's taken away jobs. And I'm thinking, well, steam engine, did it take away jobs from horse and cart drivers and horse people who raised horses? Yeah, sure, if they didn't adapt.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I would love to ask you about what Elon's doing and his intent on building personal robots, and his feeling, from what I've seen, is that it's going to be bigger in Tesla than electric cars. What's your opinion on that?
I mean, what he's doing on day-to-day basis, I can't comment on that. He has lots going on for himself and in his mind. But personal robots, as I said earlier, see, in most cases in our lives, generally, we have very repeatable processes. We cook food, we eat food. we buy some stuff from superstore or grocery store and things like that. With AI approaching the levels of, being able to make a lot of complex decisions on our part, it's inevitable that we'll have personal robots doing the menial job. Like nobody wants to be, somebody's a slave doing everything for them, and nobody wants in turn to have somebody obey all their orders. Like, I don't know, that's my personal opinion, but if you have a machine taking care of all these things, and by the way, machines don't throw tantrums, they don't get angry, they don't fuss, they don't pass judgment, they don't have any issues with self-esteem. So of course, wherever things can be automated, it's less headache to just automate things. That's just a fact. We do that at a personal level as well. So people who bark at technology, we all use Alexa, we all use Siri, and if we are so much against it, then we'll say, okay, I boycott speaking to any voice robot, but it's convenient. So similarly, as technology improves, personal assistants, all these things will start becoming part and parcel of our lives. And that's where we are going. That's why I said earlier, next 5 to 10 years, life is going to change and will continue to change. And this world will be different and people will need to adapt.
I believe he said something along the lines of within the next 2 years or so, something would be released. With your experience in the AI field, how progressed are we? Do you feel in the ability to have? Because let me clarify my question. In tech, there is people, for example, the Terminator movies, right? Everybody says, oh my gosh, robots going to take over and kill us all. The reality is, as much as I know, is that software progresses infinitely faster than physical technology because of manufacturing and et cetera, et cetera. And so the limitations with these things is the tech, the mechanical tech, not necessarily the computing power to do it. How do you see our progression in the world of, for example, personal robots or robots in the workplace, where it's not a massive automated machine in a factory, but more of something that can work semi-autonomously based on instruction, maybe not even in our home? How close are we to that, do you think?
It's already happening. So if you just Google or go to YouTube, there are humanoid machines who can understand your language, who can respond with the emotional sort of feedback, with the right facial expression. As simulated as close to a human being, with the smile, with the blinking of the eyes, all that is already here. The IBM Watson machine defeated the world champion in Go. That was a few years ago, and since then they have even more powerful AI already developed. So we are already on that brink where technology is able to simulate a lot of these human behaviors. But at the same time, it is also early because it's experimental, it's not consistent yet, it's quite expensive. So people with deep pockets, they are already enjoying the benefits of all this technology. As far as robotics in manufacturing is concerned, that has been around for decades, right? But now it is getting even more sophisticated. It's getting even to the point where the robots can actually make decisions based on the input and say, okay, this color doesn't match the specification, or there's a scratch here. Computers can see now. They can hear now. They can actually synthesize voice. They can do all these things right now. And when you start to plug these capabilities into any machine, which can see like a human, which can hear like a human, of course, the possibilities are endless. So the idea is that these technologies are right now available, but first they are experimental. So not all the kinks have been worked out, and they are expensive, they are complex. And so few people can afford them, but they are out there right now. And in few years, it's going to be like very, very common. Let's take an example of a self-driving car. That was a science fiction, maybe 7 years ago, 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. Now anybody can have it, right?
Yeah, I've got one. That's great.
Yeah.
Even just for the fact of, as you're driving, you're having to, your job is to pay attention. But the level of attention and the fatigue that can come from that in long drives versus monitoring the car to make sure it's doing the right thing is a difference in level of attention and energy expenditure in it. And I think, you're right. A lot of this tech is already here. My uncle's a pilot, and he once joked with me that his job is to park the plane, because it will take off, fly, and land itself. And then at that time, and this isn't, I haven't spoken to him about this specifically for a few years, but it does essentially fly itself, but they tend to take off and land them, but it can do it. It will get to a point where you just have got a guy eating his cornflakes, just watching it, sitting there at the front. Trains in places now don't have drivers, like in airports in Singapore. You just get in the train and it does its thing. And that scares a lot of people. It comes back to that same thing, I think, just because they don't understand. But Elon with his cars talked about they're very close to, or if not, I think they've already surpassed, but I think he had a goal of like 10 times or something like that, safer than a human driving, because we all overestimate how good we are at driving. And so we think we're really good. And so how could a car detect and do all these things? But the statistics show us that actually humans are bad at driving and that cars are better. Interestingly, there was a study and they asked people, do you think that you're above average, or below average in driving? And the majority of people said that they were above average, which shows that is not, it's delusional, because if you all are above average, then you're average, which I thought was quite funny. I have to ask this, and I feel like I know the answer, but I just want to hear your thoughts. Where do you see AI and robots and things like that well into the future, 50, 100 years from now? Do you see it being something that becomes an existential crisis for us as humans, as we become replaced by technology that is far superior to us in all ways, and therefore, Planet of the Apes sort of caged by them? Or do you feel like technology like Neurolink, etc., that means that we can interface with computers will allow us to compete? Like, what's your feeling on that?
I think it'll be more like Neuralink. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, once again, you can read history. Any technology can be used for any purpose, good or bad. Technology itself is always neutral. I mean, you can use fire to cook food, and you can use fire to, kill people. So the idea here is that AI has already started impacting our minds, and vice versa, because everybody you talk to, they are almost overstimulated with all the information that is being thrown at their way, using social media, Netflix, and ads, and most people don't even watch regular TV anymore. So this is a part of AI already impacting human mind, and it will continue to do so. And whatever physical shape it takes, in my opinion, I don't think we will need to plant devices. I don't think we'll need to sort of, take these like injections or whatever the Hollywood movie sort of depicts. I believe we will eventually develop almost like a capability to exchange signals electronically, telepathically, however you want to call it. Because at the end of the day, our minds are also just, electric pulse making machines, right? Our brains. And that's all it is. So all it needs, somebody needs. And in fact, there are some consumer devices on the market right now which can read your brain waves, and they can actually take action. So, 50 years, I'm pretty sure that technology will be available that seamlessly can integrate with human mind and vice versa. And we'll just need to think about, okay, this needs to happen, and some machine will be able to take that input and do it.
I feel like Neuralink will maybe speed the process, because it bridges the gap between the technological advance to be able to read it at a distance, right? Because that's the thing. If I can just put it in an earpiece like you've got, and it can detect whole brain signals and translate, and therefore I don't have to think the instruction organically happens based off of my thinking in the moment. That's the bridge, right? I don't think, move my arm.
That's what I meant. So that's what I meant. Like, 10 years ago, we used to have to plug a cable into our laptop or desktop to get internet. But now, it's weird. They're like, whoa, what, you have Wi-Fi? What's wrong with you? So a Neurolink is at that stage where, you need cables and all that, which is what I'm trying to say. Like in 50 years, those things will not be needed.
It's interesting because you said a good point, and it's true. I can't imagine running a business, researching anything or thinking in general without having the internet, like without having a phone. So if I'm having a discussion with someone and someone makes a claim about anything, what do? I immediately access this infinite thing of knowledge to find references. And then I can say, that's not true. Here you go. And so sidetrack it. It irritates me when people make claims without having a basic Google search, because it's like, what planet do you live on? Google it. The answer is there. But secondly, to that point, it's like we're already connected with these devices, and it's just a manual process of getting the device, opening the device, searching the phrase, finding the reference that is backed up our point, and then presenting it. But that will change when the system can read what I'm thinking about, and I can essentially be plugged in. I'm hoping that I'll be alive to see that time where we are, for example, I like playing video games from time to time, and you can do cloud gaming now, which makes a ton of sense. And I don't know why it wasn't here ages ago, I guess internet speeds or something, where you can access through an online portal another computer which has the power to play the video game, even though your computer doesn't, right? I just use the internet to play the game virtually. I can control your computer now from Zoom, right? I do that with my clients. And so I'm looking forward to the time where we can essentially access processing power for our thoughts using like a remote AI computers to assist our brain in making the decision. Because
as I said, these devices are available today.
Can you send me some links?
Yeah,
I'd love to look into that.
Yeah, it's actually being used in, special cases, like, it's being used for Alzheimer's patients and those type of situations where they actually cannot physically like do something, and so they are impaired, or basically they need help in doing regular stuff because they're handicapped or whatever. So these devices are able to take their thoughts, convert them into actions, and a computer takes action on their behalf. There are like, if you're interested, I can look it up, but I've talked to many founders who actually have developed this, and it's in testing right now.
Let me pivot here for a second. I thought you'd be the perfect person to ask this thought experiment with. So, and I'd love to know, like, fully your opinion on this, because it gets into the realm of spiritual, but logic too, right? If I was to, if my consciousness is an operation of the synapses in my brain, and it forms by having enough of them that it starts to create an autonomous system that now can think, and then I develop self-awareness, and that's rudimentary and maybe an accurate version of how we develop consciousness in beings and creatures. If I was to be able to copy that into a computer, I would live on for everybody else, but not for myself. So this is where I get weird about it. And I'd love to hear what you think about this, because when we think about our consciousness, it exists for us in our heads, but can be identically the same and therefore exist for others and have all of my memories. So if I'm downloading my memories, which will probably be, I think they're working, I would assume they're working on this already, right? It's already something that's happening, downloading memories, etc. At what point does this weird transition happen between I am me for me and I am me for others through the computer? Do you see what I'm asking?
See, I believe there's a flaw in the question itself. You are assuming consciousness is created in your mind. Okay. So it's like going out in a windy day, feeling the wind on our skin and saying, oh, my skin is producing the wind. So think of it this way. Consciousness is a flow of information. It doesn't belong to you. It doesn't belong to me. Our mind is just the capturing device, which is feeling the consciousness. You see what I'm saying?
So I'm currently feeling my consciousness, and others would feel my consciousness. I may not feel my consciousness.
Others will feel their own view of your consciousness, or it's a common. So again, take the example of the wind, right? It doesn't belong to anybody. Some people face it head on. Some people face it sideways. Some people face it, in the opposite direction. It's the same wind, but everybody has a different perspective of that wind. So consciousness is one, and we all take a slice of it.
So I guess the bigger question around that is, if my consciousness, through my perception of my consciousness, if I was downloaded into a computer that could emulate me with all of my memories and tics, etc., my consciousness would be experienced by others in their own way. But
I believe that, again, I have a very different view on this. See, in my opinion, memories are just snapshots of what we thought actually happened, which is, we all know it's grossly outdated, grossly overestimated, exaggerated, and whatnot, right? So all we are talking about is making some imaginary movie and calling it, okay, this is my life. We do that anyways, like go to any movie theater, that's what it is. So I don't understand this obsession of capturing somebody's memories, because those memories themselves are just temporary images on our brain's silver screen. Nobody else knows how accurate that memory is. We just make it up as we go,
They did a study on that with 9/11 and asked people, where were you at 9/11? And then they kept asking people over time, and the stories changed. People who weren't there thought they were, and then they weren't actually there. Which begs the question, as memories become redundant, because we will be able to, through augmented reality, et cetera, have actual recordings of everything. We will stop relying on our brain's ability to remember, because we will have an augmented reality which has an actual recording which we can access at any point in time to actually view. It's going to get very strange how we talk about that in general life, then, isn't it? Because we won't ever rely on our memory then.
Nothing is strange. It's always strange to think about the past, and it's always strange to think about the future, because it's so radically different. But when we are living through it, it's not strange, because think about it. I was born in 1975. I grew up. The very first time I watched television was when I was like in 7th grade. I was like, what the, how is this even possible? That guy is sitting, I don't know where, and I can just like watch him like in real time, and not in real time, but I can watch him as he's moving his hands. And now that was a huge paradigm shift, right? And then came the internet. It's like, okay, you can browse web pages, and now we can do video calls, and so if you were talking to somebody in 1990 and said there will be a time when you could sit halfway across the world, and in real time, in high definition, you can talk to a person, they'll be like, oh, I know, but Star Trek stuff, maybe another 50 years, maybe give it another 50, 60 years. But here we are, right, in 20 years. Now it's not as strange. In fact, it's part of life now. In fact, more people prefer this than that, right? The face-to-face meeting. So as technology gets adopted, more and more people get comfortable with it. It doesn't sound weird. In fact, deviating from that reality sounds more weird than anything else.
It's a sort of it's a literal example of what you said about memories and being a snapshot. The weirdness that I'm quoting is me trying to perceive something that I can't perceive and will really only perceive once I am there. But if I'm, living in the moment as it is, not thinking about past or future, it is what it is, and I'm experiencing it. And I agree with you. I see that, for example, with myself in business, and what has allowed me to achieve the most success, and the thing that I pass on to my clients is solve for the problem, don't chase ideas. And I think that I'm definitely one that will dream and think about all these things, but to actually move forward with it so that you're not stuck in the weirdness and getting over trapped in your thoughts, is to come back to what's happening right now, and who has the answer, or how can I create that? And I think that's really interesting. I love what you said, just to bring back to this, about that consciousness is sort of a, misquoting you, sort of there's a shared experience element to it, and that I'm currently experiencing my consciousness in a certain way, and others are experiencing my consciousness in a different way. And whether or not it's in a machine or in my head or not is all sort of almost irrelevant, because it's all just a sharedness of the consciousness. And so to overthink about whether I will be me in that machine is irrelevant, because I may now not perceive myself having the consciousness, but the consciousness is still being perceived. I think that resolves it for me, because that was always something I thought about, is, this idea of downloading consciousness and living, forever. There will be a time where that is effectively what is happening. It's just, and as you put it beautifully, my perception of my consciousness might have shifted or not exist, but for all intents and purposes, I am still in perpetuity through the machine. I'd love to segue a little bit. What are you working on at the moment that you're really interested in?
So right now we are working on a business accelerator where a lot of people struggle, first of all, with some fundamentals of business on how to find what they are good at, what do they want to bring to the world, then find how do they want to package it, how do they want to make it credible for people to invest in their product or service. And then sales is another animal that a lot of people don't really understand. So in this accelerator, our focus is on helping people grow organically using revenue growth rather than raising funding and whatnot. But if a business is looking for funding, we help with all that. But the accelerator is focused on organic growth through revenue generation. That's what we're working on. And we utilize a lot of the things that we talked about in this interview so far, and some proprietary technologies, artificial intelligence based, which helped with business growth quickly. Everything is related to data, digital platforms, and data science, on zeroing in on what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah. I think that a lot of my audience are service professionals. They're running small businesses, and we forget that it's all a giant exercise in problem solving and vision. If you're clear on what you want to do, there's multiple paths there, but you've got to focus on solving the immediate problems. And you're right. I think a lot of people, not really in my space, but obviously in the tech space a lot, is relying on funding to help you grow. I'm going to make this thing, and then a bunch of people will give me money, and then the business will come from it. Versus, how do I make this a minimal viable product that produces a revenue that I can then, and I've always run my businesses like that. And I teach my clients to do the same, because I'm not even of the world of funding and wouldn't even know what to do if somebody gave me 100 million. But I find that interesting to hear about it from the other side. Let me ask you one final question that I ask all my guests, and kind of putting you on the spot with it. But I love to get insights from my guests, and I'm collating them at the moment, because I think that all of us have something extremely valuable to provide in our personal experiences and what we've learned. And so let me ask you, what's the most important thing you ever learned?
Communication skills. The thing is that a lot of people have a lot of skills, a lot of expertise, knowledge, but the only way we acquire that knowledge is through communication, either through reading or listening to some video or whatever, or the best way of learning is just one-on-one conversation. And then the other way to produce value and deliver that value is also through communication. So you can, take a tally of every dollar that you have earned in your lifetime, anything that you have gotten, anything. It is through some sort of conversation you had with somebody else. So whether that's a job, whether that's a business deal, whether that's, a date, whatever it is. So I believe communication is the single most important skill to learn. I hadn't paid too much focus or attention to it for the first 40 years of my life. But after that, I did, and a lot of things changed after that.
I resonate with that so much. I focused so much on what I can do without relying on other people for various, things that, beliefs and patterns absorbed from childhood is I'll do it myself because I can't rely on others. And, I'm recently 31, and what I've realized in these last few years more and more and more every single day is how much the life experience has improved with the sharing of it with people, and how much more can be achieved with people. The idea that, you got to know people is true more than I think most people realize. It's not about, who you know, so therefore that's the only way to get opportunities. It's who you know can accelerate what you're trying to achieve by helping others to share your vision because they have resources. And it's not an unfair thing. It's a mere fact of people can help us to go further. You can go fast by yourself, but you can go far when you've got others. And when you include others in that through good communication, as you said, because that's the skill of it. Value is important for networking. If I can't offer value to anybody, Elon's not going to want to talk to me unless I can, because he's got billions of people wanting to talk to him, unless there's a value exchange. And a lot of that is just in clear communication. And I couldn't agree more. I think it's something that all of us need to spend a lot more time with conscious focus on, is how do I communicate better, ultimately provide more value? Because life is about sharing it with people. Everything's better when people are involved, generally speaking. If I'm going on holiday by myself, might be fun. With a whole lot of friends that we resonate together, it's going to be a whole lot more fun. And at the core of that is communication. That's beautiful. Where can our audience connect with you and follow what you're doing and check out your things?
LinkedIn will be the best choice. Just connect with me on LinkedIn, mention this podcast, or visit my website. It's my first name and last name.com. So manujaggarwal.com, or LinkedIn is best.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for checking out this episode. If you liked it, please make sure to subscribe and share it with your friends. And if you're a healthcare professional who wants to get serious about business, check out practiceowner.com, where we have a whole lot of resources on helping you to grow more impactful and more financially viable practices. So that's practiceowner.com. Go and check that out if you're a health professional serious about business. And don't forget to subscribe.